On PM Express tonight, we're exploring a very topical issue that is refusing to go away. Award of contracts, exploring the bidding process, the Adjaye controversy. You may be aware that the new parliamentary chamber issue brought about the principal architect for that building. That has raised a number of issues, and 12 contracts awarded to Sir David Adjaye, principal architect for the new parliamentary complex, under question as a member of the Ghana Institute of Architects Petition's president over procurement breaches. And so that you may know, he lists these projects, the 12 projects he talks about, and the National Cathedral Project, New Parliamentary Chamber Project, Marine Drive Master Planning Project, International Cancer Center for Children Project, Trade Fair Center Redesign Project, GNPC Accra Head Office Project, GNPC Takrady Office Complex, News Office Complex for the Bank of Ghana, City House, Airport City 2 design, Ochihene Palace design, New Railway Terminal design, redevelopment and expansion of Ghana Embassy. Those are the 12 contracts that have been awarded to one person, and that's the reason someone has petitioned. Now, the 9-page petition alleges Sir David Adjaye is not registered to carry on the profession of an architect in Ghana under the Architects Decree 1968 NRCD 357 as amended. And he goes on to say Sir Adjaye, not being ordinarily a resident in Ghana, according to the petitioner, Dr. Ekosam, also disqualifies Sir Adjaye from practicing in Ghana. Now, the petition is questioning the competence of those who awarded these contracts, and he says he cites a breach of the Public Procurement Act 2016, Act 915 as amended. We'll be delving into this act as the conversation kickstarts. Now, the Ghana Institute of Architects, the mother association of Dr. Ekosam, have also issued a statement, and the issue is simple. They are calling for the establishment of the Architects Registration Council Board. Why? I'll tell you why they're calling for this. They want government to adhere to the Public Procurement Act 2016 Act 914 to ensure transparency, equal opportunities, and fairness. Now, the Institute is also threatening legal actions should government not have the ARC board in place. And they've given us reasons why they're threatening court action. The question we're asking tonight, and we'll be finding answers and interrogating the issues, look for answers, is Architects Registration Council Board antidote to infractions in the appointment of consultants? We'll be delving into this matter shortly. I'm grateful that you joined us for PM Express. My name is Adjaye. My guest in the studio tonight, Collins Agyemang Sapon, is president of the Ghana Institute of Procurement and Supply, and architect Richard Nidade is president, Ghana Institute of Architects. And also joining us live in the discussion is Victor Kojo Gan Adawudu, who is private legal practitioner. Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I'd like to start with you, and I'd like to go into the petition that was the petition that was submitted to the president by a member of your association. And I'll read portions of that. It's by Dr. Ekosam, and he addresses it to the President of the Republic. He says, with the greatest respect, in all humility, I consider it expedient and in the interest of transparency and fairness to bring to your attention the award of government projects to one foreign architect as per the list below. And I spoke about the list, 12 of them. And he says, all of these have been awarded to one person. Even where we have bidded alongside this government preferred architect and won on merit, a decision is taken to give the project to this architect, which is Sir David Adjaye, I spoke about earlier. And he says, Your Excellency, first of all, Sir David Adjaye, who is the principal architect of Adjaye and Associates, to the best of our knowledge, is not licensed, and registered to carry on the profession of an architect under the architect's decree. And then he goes on to say, secondly, said David Adjaye, not being ordinarily resident in Ghana is disqualified from being registered as an architect licensed to practice in Ghana under the architect's decree NRCD 357 as amended. And that petition was copied to you, the Ghana Institute of Architects. What's your preliminary observation?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Clearly, Dr. Sam is protesting against some kind of injustice which he believes has been carried out. He has his reasons to do so. He's listed a number of projects. We've looked at the list, and we can say that it's not all the projects that might be government projects. Some projects like the Ochinis Palace, there's some cancer research and so on. I think these might not necessarily be government projects. But clearly, the majority of the list is referring to government projects. And he feels he's been shortchanged and that procedure has not been followed. So that is where he's coming from.
But if you look at his petition and the statement that you released, he makes some serious allegations. And per your statement, the statement that was released by the Institute itself, it also quotes poor application of procurement procedures in the design of competition for the proposed new parliamentary chamber. He talks about the handling of the new parliamentary chamber. You talk about the poor application of procurement procedures. Exactly what are your concerns?
Let's look at the background for this project, this parliamentary chamber. It is a public project. It's of iconic value. It's of importance. And ordinarily, you would expect that for a project of such significance, it would be open to the whole body of architects, so that that gives us a latitude of ideas that would come in, right? If you restrict it, you only limit yourself to the 2 or 3 that you've chosen, you know. So that is the basic thing. Again, as per Architect Act 1969-357, the GIA is mandated to organize competitions in the country. The duty of the ARC is to ensure that the GIA follows procedure. This is very important, and we need to understand that. So you would expect the parliamentary services to approach the Ghana Institute of Architects that we want to organize a competition, and then we walk them through the roadmap we will take them to the results that they want to get. This was not done. We're not involved in the selection of the 3 companies, and if you look at them, one is a Chinese construction firm. Then we have these 2 other architects, Dr. Sam and Dr. Adjaye. Now, obviously, one would question, how did we come out with this? Did Parliamentary Service shortlist these 3? If you look at the Procurement Act, right, it states clearly how you can shortlist. Then it also states, I think it's in 66, clause 66. It also says that, and I'll read, the shortlist may comprise only national consult, but shall comprise at least 3 and not more than 6. Now, what does this mean? It doesn't mean that you just pick any 3. There must be 3 eligible bidders. Now, if a Chinese contractor who's not a designer has been put on the list, obviously, from the beginning, ab initio, there is a problem. So this is where we are coming from, that this basic procurement procedure was not followed from the beginning. If it had been followed, then all would have gone well. But then there was this breach, right?
From the beginning.
And that is where the flaw comes in. Now, you might want to know whether we were involved. Like I said, we're not involved. After submissions had been made, then the Institute was invited by the Architects Registration Council to be part of a panel. Now, our honorary secretary, who went initially with the group, pointed out that there was an aberration, that there was something seriously wrong, and that this needs to be looked at. Now, he was asked to leave the panel, so he left. He raised his objections, but we don't know what happened after that. If this restricted tendering, would want to know, and probably later on my colleague would tell you the conditions under which you can do restrictive tendering. It's clearly laid out again in this PPA document, and it wasn't followed. Yeah. Okay. So basically, that's where we're coming from.
Well, let me bring in Collins, who is the president of the Institute of Procurement and Supply. This is what you do all the time, talking about procurement, and this is what the Ghana Institute of Architects is talking about, that there was poor procurement, and I like to quote exactly what they say. There is a poor application of procurement procedures in the design of the competition for the proposed new parliamentary chamber. You've been following the issues all this while, and you know what kind of procedures we go through, the bidding process, and how all the consultants are selected. From where you sit, do you think that it was poorly executed?
Okay. First of all, I wouldn't say yes or no. First of all, what I would say is that we have different types of methods, procurement methods, depending on the situation and the threshold. We always say that the default method is always found under Section 35, that talks about competitive tendering. And there, they say that we will buy goods, works, and services through competition. It means that you have to open up the procurement process to every eligible qualified vendor, contractor, or consultant. Then the 2 says that when it comes to consultancy, another default one is you buy using the quality cost-based method. However, if you want to skew it, then you go to Section 66(1), or you can do what we call the restricted, which can also be found in 38.
Okay, of the Procurement
Act.
Of
the Procurement Act as amended. So the 38 gives the room for the restricted.
Okay.
So you first have the competitive tendering. That one, you open it up, that's where you see advert and graphic and other widely read media channels. Then the restricted is where, when he was talking about, is where you restrict the number of people or of service providers that can take part of the process. However, it's based on, there are some of the items that you will get it from a limited suppliers. Okay. You wouldn't have a lot of, you can't have 20 in the market. And there are some items that once you mention, you know that it is only, you can get it from these 3 vendors. Okay. So why then cause an advert in papers once you know it is only 3 that will respond anyway? Okay. So then you approach these 3. But even to do that, you have to seek approval from Public Procurement Authority. Okay. Or at times, you can also skew the number of suppliers, consultants, or vendors when the cost and the time. Let's say you want to buy something and within 1 week there is a disaster, or within a month you need to get that item. You can reduce the number of people that will compete, because it can take you 6 months before you finish the evaluation, or the amount involved. Maybe you are buying something costing 5,000 Ghana cedis, or 15,000 Ghana cedis. Do you have to go and pay an advert that will cost you, let's say, 3,000, 4,000 to buy something costing you 10,000? So it makes the whole procurement process expensive to do. So that one, you can also use that as a bit to do the restricted tendering. Okay,
so obviously in this particular tendering, they used the restricted one.
Restricted.
Did they follow the procedure?
Well, from the information that I've had, they wrote to Public Procurement Authority, mentioned about 3 companies with these winners, and they were approved. PPA approved for the restricted tendering.
Okay.
Yes.
So they followed the procedure.
Once you seek for approval from PPA, it means that they have followed the 38 that we are talking about.
The section 38 of the Act.
Yes.
There's what I'll bring you in. There's one more thing about this. The consultant who won this whole contract, and one of the things that Dr. Sam mentions is the fact that he's not ordinarily a resident in Ghana, and that disqualifies him from practicing in Ghana, apart from he not being licensed under the Architect's Decree 1968. And I want to bring in lawyer Victor Adawudu into this. I'm grateful that you joined us, but if you can hear me, I want you to take us through the Architect's Decree and what does it prescribe with regards to who qualifies to practice as an architect.
Aisha, thank you. And let me say good evening to your viewers. Yes, Aisha, I believe that the Architect Act regulates, it's provided so that it can regulate the activities of architects and other related matters. Now, it is made a specific, because architects are a group of professionals, it is regulated and it has made the qualification of who can become an architect or not.
Okay.
Now, it says that to be an architect, you must pass the qualifying examination.
And the examination is...
This examination must be approved by the board.
Who conducts the examination?
And it's the board. Okay. That is the Architectural Registration Council.
Okay.
Now, so that's what makes you an architect. You must pass the exams. Now, that is Section 10 of the Act. If you come to Section 11 of the Act, it says that you cannot be registered as an architect if you are not resident in the Republic.
Okay.
2, you cannot be registered as an architect when you are below the age of 21.
Okay.
And third, and more important, is that if you've not paid the prescribed fees. Now, it also goes on that if you have been convicted of fraud and dishonesty, you are disqualified.
Okay.
So this is what the Act says.
This is what the Act says.
So if you are not resident here,
so the Act, I mean, is specific.
You have not paid the prescribed fees, then you cannot be qualified as an architect.
Great. So that's the point that Dr. Sam raises. And I'm very interested in the conduct of examination by the Architects Registration Council Board. And it's one of the issues that you have raised strongly in the statements that you issued, that you want that board constructed. First, let me find let me find from you if David Adjaye has gone through this examination.
No, he has not.
He has not.
He has not. What happened was in April 2014, sorry, last year, 2018 actually.
2018.
Yes. He was invited or given membership. Now, he was asked to come and pay his registration fees, go through an administrative process so that he could become a full member.
Okay.
As we speak now, this has not been done. And to confirm this, if you look at the publication that came out the publication of the architects, the Register of Architects last year in April, which is our base date, he was not shown as a member of the institute. He also has his firm, David Adjaye and Associates, which is also not registered.
With the
yes.
institute?
You have to go through the GIA, and as Laura said, you need to go through the GIA to get to the ARC.
Okay.
So if you haven't completed your process
with the
GIA, you cannot go to the ARC to register you. Now this is what happened. So as far as GIA is concerned, because he doesn't have GIA membership, because he hasn't completed the process, he is not a member of the GIA. That I can say categorically. It's clear.
So that probably is one of the reasons why you are asking for that board. Now, from your statement, it's just it's obvious that you don't have that board in place. The board that is supposed to conduct examination. If that board is not in place, then this section 10, may not be able to be fulfilled as a requirement. So you may not be able to blame Sir Adjaye if there is no such establishment to conduct such exams.
Okay, so we have regulatory bodies in this country. My colleague Collins mentioned the Procurement Board. They would need to check, is this person eligible to practice in Ghana? They'd have to carry out that check.
Okay.
Right. Even the Architects Registration Council would also have to check, and they would need to check with us. There have been no such checks with us. That's why we are saying this is a poor procurement practice. These are things that should be done. Now, just let me touch on something that Collins mentioned. When you go to restrictive tendering, right, there are clear conditions, and Clause 38 states it. You can do this if goods, works, or services available are only from a limited number of suppliers and contractors. Same thing applies to consultants. Okay. We have over 1,000 architects in this country. Now, how can you restrict it only to what is the basis? What natural justice is there for this? Right. It also says, if the time and cost required, this is 38B, required to examine and evaluate a large number of tenders is disproportionate to the value of goods, works, and services to be procured. This is a project of a major national importance. We need not rush to do it. We need to give ourselves adequate time. And again, as you probably confirm, you need normally to get your procurement plan in place, get your budget done before you even start these things. So we do not say these two, based on these two, I don't see how this could have qualified for restrictive tendering. Now, if it did, what is the procedure for doing restricted tendering? There's a process you go through. You have to advertise, you have to do an expression of interest. And in fact, you advertise in a newspaper of wide national circulation. Was this done? We haven't seen this, right? Okay. That is why we're talking about a poor application of the rules. Now, even when you look in Schedule 3, which refers to the various thresholds. Let me find this. Yeah, here we are. No. It talks about what, you're supposed to be subject to approval by the Public Procurement Board. That is if you're going for restricted tendering. Okay. We need then to see the evaluation report, which will clearly state in black and white that these procedures are being followed. We have not seen it. It has not been published. Indeed, when our Honorary Secretary asked that how were these 3 names shortlisted, he was told that that information could not be divulged to him. And this is public funds. It's our funds. It's for you and me. It's for Collins, all of us. Yeah. Right? So we need to know. We have a right to know how our funds are being used. This is where we're coming from.
This makes me believe that definitely contracts of this nature, if it has to go through the Public Procurement Authority and it has to go through the Institute of Architects, there must be some collaboration. You're speaking a different language from what the Institute of Architects, because you say that due process was followed. What kind of collaboration is between these two institutions? Well,
normally I hear the Parliamentary service board invited them. I can boldly say that our institution, that's GIPS, were not invited. But normally we have procurement officers and directors at the various entities. So they normally coordinate the procurement activities within the organization in which they work. So we believed that the procurement officer working at the Parliamentary Service Board maybe started the process. Okay. We do not have that information, whether it's the procurement officer that led it. However,
so they never invited you into their meeting?
No. We were not part of the evaluation. We were not part of any advice to Parliament as to how the procurement needs to go through.
But they only communicated to you the final list of those who were.
You know, our institute is a professional institute.
Yep.
We don't procure on behalf of any organization. Okay. However, we have professionals working with us. Okay. So if you want to, you are procuring something and you think that you need a well-bred procurement officer and you approach us, we can recommend one of our members to help you run that procurement process. But as an institute, we don't lead a procurement process for any entity. Are you getting the difference? So they requested PPA for the approval of the 3. It behoves on the entity to do the necessary due diligence. Okay. Because at the evaluation stage, we look at documentation where we have mandatory requirement. Okay. Is the companies that you have picked, are they registered? Are they tax compliant? If you requested for base security, have they provided it? How much? Are they having the necessary staff that can execute whatever service? So usually this is done during the procurement process, the evaluation, based on the document that you have asked them to provide. Then you evaluate them against that. Okay. So those things need to come from the procurement entity. That's the Parliamentary Service Board. Yes, or the procurement officer helping them run the show. Okay. And I believe because they saw that, okay, we want to apply this particular method, and the law says that before you can apply restricted, you need to go and seek approval before you use that method. I believe that is the reason why they wrote to PPA, and PPA granted them the approval based on the reasons they gave. Okay. Okay. So you need to get to know what letter was written, the content of it, what were the reason, the excuse why they want to apply restricted. For, you know, like when you go to the 38, it will tell you you have limited number of vendors, the time involved, and the cost involved in the item that you are buying does not commensurate with the whole issue. So you can apply. For, you know, we need to know the reason. If they stated such reason, PPA will give them the approval, but it behoves on the entity to ask all this regulatory documentation and all that.
So, did you approach the Parliamentary Service Board, or maybe in the form of writing, to request that they involve you, or, I mean, give you reasons why they did not make any communication to your outfit before taking that decision?
That would be deemed to be interfering with an ongoing process. They've decided to go ahead with this. One of our reps has raised an objection. It has not been listened to. So normally you'd leave them to finish the process. But then what I said, and which I think is still important, we need to see the evaluation report, which would cover all the steps that were taken. We haven't seen this yet. Okay. Now that would prove what Collins is asserting, that they have PPA approval. So I would see it in there, because you have to show, even your advert, you have to show it together with the date it came out, and when the submissions were made, the panel opened submission. So all that would be in the report. We haven't seen such a report. I don't know whether Collins you are privy to such a report. No, we need to see that report. Okay. That will expose all these things and will tell us if indeed the correct procedure was followed.
Now, key among your requests in that statement is the establishment of that board, the registration, architect registration council board.
Yes.
And how long has it been?
Okay,
Why is the call coming now?
It is not coming now, but it's probably now that it's been thrown out in the public domain. We haven't had a board for 5 years. And so when, since January 2017, we've been trying to get it on. We've been going through the process through Ministry of Works and Housing. And as we stated, we even went as far as we thought we could go. But we still don't see anything. So it's now that we're saying that, look, these were some of the issues we cautioned against, that the absence of a board means that there's nobody who's given supervisory powers, who's supervising activities being taken by the council. Okay. Right? So now it is clear that what we said would happen, this is an example. There might be other aberrations, but this is one clear example. If there had been a board in place, and I'll read, just permit me to read you the membership of the board. It was well thought of. This original decree came out in 1969, but it was amended by VCRAC, one of the legal luminaries we have in this country, in 1996. And then it became an act. Now, the governing body of the council is one registered architect by the ministry responsible for works and housing, 5 persons nominated by the Institute of Architects, 1 person from the Faculty of Architecture, 1 person nominated by the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences. If you remember, or as you know, the Academy of Arts and Sciences is an all-embracing body, and it's interested in the development of the country generally. So this is why, in their wisdom, they put on somebody from there. Now, we need a legal advisor. So indeed, we have a legal advisor from the Attorney General, and then the registrar who is nominated by the Institute. Okay. So this is the setup. Now, if you have 10 persons supervising or looking at, they formulate policy, and then they look at the activities that are being carried. Obviously, you would benefit from, again, a latitude of opinions, so that this thing that Parliamentary Service went through would have been looked at by many people, and they would have probably advised Parliamentary Service that, look, this is not the way to go about it. Just follow this procedure, and then we'll give you your results. That's why I think the board must be in place as soon as possible. But
one of the reasons you gave for calling for this board is to avert the recurrence of infractions. So it means that you've had cause for concern when it comes to this area, that there's been infractions. And I'm sure David Adjaye's issue is one of the issues that is bringing up all of these. But as we said, is David Adjaye, okay, so he's not among the registered people.
No.
And as at now, I mean, let's see the register, because we've checked the register and his name is not there. But there's also one call by your member, and he talks about considering the local architects instead of the foreign ones. Is that something? Okay, the writing is very small, but we've gone through all this. These are the standing members, and David Adjaye's name is not part of the names in this register. And ECOSAM wants government to recognize local architects instead of the foreign ones. Have you had cause for concern regarding this issue?
Okay, we would like at this stage to say that we're not looking at local architect versus foreign architect. Okay. Granted, every year the University of Science and Technology comes out with some 80 architects. Central University comes out with another 50 or so. So we do have a wide number of architects here. But all we are saying is that there should be fair competition. That is where we are stressing. Now, Sir David Adjaye himself became a renowned architect by winning competitions, not in Ghana, not in Tanzania, where it was, but in a wide number of places, because he competed on a level playing ground. So we're asking that the same be applied to us. So the Ghana Institute of Architects stands by its statement that there should be fair competition, right? it's not foreign versus local, but there should be fair competition. If you're good, you win. There are many projects in the world that were won by non-indigenous or non-residents, but those are the rules of the competition, and it's fine. I mean, the Sydney Opera House, this Holocaust museum that he himself won, there's the other museum that he won in the US. So these things are there. We're just saying, let's have fair competition. That's all we're saying.
Okay. Well, one of the issues that was raised in that petition also, very interesting, Dr. Sam makes mention of 12 contracts given to just one person. Is this out of place?
From procurement process, I would say no. It's just like you saying that you have a competitor or you have two shops and one person, because of good customer service, is selling more than you. Once he's a businessman, Adjaye and Associates is a business. So once they qualify and they can take part of any tender, and you could see that the names are not the same. It's not one entity giving all the business to him.
Different.
Even if it is that, once they've tendered and they've won on merit, you cannot question that why is one designer or contractor is winning jobs. Here you have over 10 entities. They put in, they throw their tender out, he comes and he wins because maybe his technical and the financial prepositions are the best. So they having a number of contracts given to them. Once the processes are okay, you cannot fault that. And the law does not frown on any business entity having more jobs.
Okay.
So just let me come. The key word he used is that if procedure is followed. He said it repeatedly in many different ways.
Okay.
He made a generic statement in the sense that it is possible for one architect to win all this. Yes, it is possible. But we need to know, what we're asking is, was the proper procedure followed in all cases?
Okay.
That is the question we're asking, and we need these answers. Yeah.
Well, it looks to me like the establishment of the Architect Registration Council board will do a lot of good to and to resolve some of these issues. What kind of engagements have you had with regards to this?
Okay, as I said earlier on, what we did, the first thing was to write to, call it our mother ministry, our sector ministry, which is the Ministry of Works and Housing. They requested for names of new persons that was in 2018, which we gave them about 15 months ago. And they wrote the letter on 10th April, and then on the 11th, we had already responded with their names. Okay. That was the first step we did. And then nothing happened. Then we went to meet the minister. We explained to him, he said it would be done. We had a meeting, as we stated in our statement. We went as far as the presidency, and that's where we are now. We've been told that all our nominees, their CVs, etc., has been sent to the Council of State, which is supposed to be the last stage. So we're waiting to see what would happen. Okay,
so the timelines, you have some timelines?
In our press release, we stated clearly that by the end of the month, because we do know that the Council of State is meeting in July, and we expect that mid-July or so, they will take a decision, and then by the end of the month, the board would have been put in place. So that's why we said end of July. Yeah.
Let me bring in lawyer Kojoga Adaudu. Okay, I'm told we lost him, but if I go back to the petition and Dr. Sam, and I read portions of it, it says, in spite of the foregoing, all statutory institutions listed above have failed to adhere to Public Procurement Act as amended by the Public Procurement Act 2016 Act 915. This Act
914.
Okay.
No, I saw
as
it.
Amended. Okay, so it's a mistake. This act was intended to sanitize the mode of procurement of goods and services, and intendment carried further by you through the establishment of a Ministry of Procurement. In your wisdom, okay, and he goes on, he says, it is even more startling when one considers the fact that Adjaye and Associates currently recruiting architects at the international level, when within the country, they are locally trained, qualified, certified, registered architectural firms who can deliver the services sought. Now, you took us through the procedure, but I want what exactly the law requires. What does the law require with regards to the point he's making, that the people who gave the contracts to him were not competent enough and they did not follow the procedure?
I don't want to use how is he, what basis is he using to assess the people who run the procurement process or those who gave the contract to? And now, looking at the report and the petition is to the president.
Yes.
But when you look at the procurement law, from section 78 to 80, prescribe how any vendor, contractor, or service provider that is not happy with a particular procurement process, the process that they need to go, we call it right to review. And in the 80, we have it administrative review. So the advice is what they are doing is good. When you see a procurement process which you think is not being done well, you first write to the procurement entity. Okay? You write to the procurement entity challenging that this process that you've gone through, we think that it should have been done differently. The entity in 79 will look at, the law enjoins them to have a look at the petition and call for the process. For you know, the CEO, I don't know, either the clerk of parliament or the speaker who is in charge of the administration of the parliament, I believe it is the clerk of parliament, he should call for the process that the procurement department or engineering department went through to select, because somebody, a competitor, who was part of the shortlisted or the three companies that were sent to PPA for approval, is complaining. So they look at the process and come out with their conclusion or verdict. If the vendor or the supplier or the consultant or the service provider is not happy, they can still go further to Public Procurement Authority. So just to maybe be in your office like what we've been thrown out, okay, as a professional, it will be very difficult to buy whatever is out there unless you've probed the process. So the law gives so from 78 they can write, 79 it enjoins the procurement entity to look at the whole process and either correct it or say that, look, we went through, we think there's no problem. If the person or the contractor or the service provider is still not happy, they can now go to Public Procurement Authority to seek that review. And that one too is in the law, section 80, as amended.
Okay, I'll get on to the phone line because we lost Kojoga Daudu on the live view, and ask him what requirements the Procurement Act, 2016 Act 914, 914 requires, as amended, requires a foreign company who is bidding for a contract. Is it different from what the local companies are supposed to do? I think the line is faint. We'll get that fixed. We'll get
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
You're on PM Express.
Yes. Yes, Aisha.
Yes.
Yes, the law, what it says, let me address one quickly, that issue that I think the petition is talking about, that there is a right of, when your proposal has been rejected under Section 2829 of the Procurement Act, you need to be told what exactly and given reasons why you were not successful. Why? So if you look at the petition, they want to know why that they were rejected, they were not chosen, although it was a restrictive tender.
Okay.
To your question you asked about international competitive tendering, it is also provided that there should be international competitive tendering. However, under Section 96 as amended, what it says is that if it is based on grant or concessionary loan to the government for the building of that project and others, then the Act do not apply to it. Then that means that the Public Procurement Act do not apply to, provided it is going to be a grant or a concessionary loan to the government. So if the project is going to be for a specific project, the grant is going to be for a specific project, then the Act do not apply to that. You cannot use that. It also makes rooms for the international competitive lesson, and it goes through the same procedure. That one you need to even publish in the paper for 6 weeks. It talks about 6 weeks. That's what it is. Now, I think that it's time that when there is entity committee or review, it's done, and somebody as a tender has been rejected, his bid has been rejected, he has a right to be given the reasons by the tender committee and others, the reasons why he has been rejected. It is stated clearly in section 29 of the Act.
I'm very grateful that you joined us, Dr. Victor Kojoga Adawudu is a private legal practitioner, and I'll come to you quickly, Architect Nidade. You've threatened a court action if your request of the establishment of the Registration Council Board is not yielded to. If it happens that at the end of the month it doesn't happen, you're still going to court?
Okay. We did not threaten. We stated.
Okay.
There's a nuance there. We need to get that. So we stated that we would take legal action. It does not necessarily mean we'll go to court. Okay. There are ways of getting things done legally without necessarily going to court. We could get legal lawyers to write letters and so on, but things will be done within the framework. What we are doing is that because we're talking of procedure not being followed, we want to say that if by the end of the month we don't have a board in place, we'll take the legal options that are open to us. Yes. It doesn't mean we're going to go to court. But it doesn't mean that we won't go to court anyway. I mean, but we'll just take whatever legal options are available to us and we'll be advised. We would be informed, our final decision would be informed by what we see happening, where we know how far we are. If, for instance, there are genuine problems why the board cannot be in place, we'll understand it. If we don't have any explanation, then we'll take the options that are available to us. That's where we'll go.
Well, we'll be watching with keen interest, and I wish you all the best in this endeavor. I'd like to thank you. Collins Adjaye is the president of the Ghana Institute of Procurement and Supply, and Architect Richard Nidade is president of Ghana Institute of Architects. And you at home, I'm grateful that you watched us. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Enjoy the rest of our programs.